Hi everybody, this is Angel Arts, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play, or Gay Let's Play, Mass Effect Andromeda. This is going to be a Codex video. As usual, if you're not a Codex fan, feel free to skip over to the next video. So, finding a home, the Moshai's rescue. You saved the Moshai Shefa, but angered her by refusing to destroy the Ket Exaltation facility. Jal approved of your decision, hoping the Resistance can one day rescue the innocent Angara still trapped inside. Sorry, Moshai, but A, I'm not traveling with you, Jal's traveling with me, and if I'm gonna make somebody happy, it's gonna be Jal. And B, you can be angry with me all you want, but I still, you're an important person, and I still saved you and various other Ket people. I can't have any regrets for what I did. I just can't. I just can't. Just gotta roll with the punches. I make the decisions that I made, and just gotta be set. Just gotta accept whatever the consequences are. First contact, the Angara. You secured the trust of the Angara by proving yourself an ally on both Vold and Havarl. You proved yourself an ally to the Angara by supporting their research efforts on Havarl. You proved yourself an ally to the Angara by aiding their fight against the Ket on Vold. That's kind of awesome. Nakmor Drak. After earning Drak's respect on Eos, I think a mid-level population named William Spreader was the one who talked the Krogans into putting down the Nexus mutiny under false pretenses. Drak and Kesh both suspect Spender's connected to exiles but can't prove it. They asked you to help investigate. Cora Harper. You and Cora had become confidants as well as colleagues. She's clearly glad to have you as a friend. Aww, that's good. I'm happy. Callow. You and Callow sometimes chat in your free time. Callow will take any excuse to talk about the Tempest. Callow's growing rift with Gil Brody is becoming hard to ignore. I keep trying to talk to them about it, but they just don't want to say anything about it. Liam Costa. Liam continues to confide about his hopes and doubts for the initiative people of Helios, normally in various stages of undress, which I'm not complaining about. You're becoming close friends. Aww. Nothing new about Lexi. PB Besail. PB is becoming your resident expert on Revit technology, but she's maintaining her distance from the team. PB let you into her secret apartment, on the Nexus, and you've met someone from her past. She shrugged off the importance, but you're getting a bigger glimpse into her life. That's good. Vetra Nix. Vetra likes to describe herself as someone who gets things done, seems very committed to your mission, and the Pathfinder team's success. The fact that she brought her sister, Sid, with her to Andromeda might have something to do with her dedication. She confided in you that when Sid and Vetra's father abandoned them, she had to raise Sid alone. Her life has been spent keeping her sister safe and giving her the best life possible. In their circumstances. If the initiative fails, Vetra will have failed Sid. She refuses to accept that outcome. Gil. You've left Gil to his job taking care of the Tempest systems, which seems to keep him busy. You and Gil have bonded outside of work and are developing a friendship. Friendship's good. Friendship's very good. We can see where that friendship goes. You opted not to use Sam's help in the poker game, and Gil thrashed you effortlessly. But not thrashed enough. Gil did not thrash us enough. Maybe next time. Maybe later. You and Gil are forging a close bond, and he's confiding in you and exploring major life issues. Ooh, I love this. You expressed your own similar feelings on the matter of Suvi's spiritual spirituality. Suvi appreciated finding someone of like mind. You and Suvi have also spent some time talking about your respective families. Suvi's parents were both academics and inspired her to begin her journey in science. Jal appreciates the time you spent with him, learning about him and his people. He is also incredibly grateful for the part you've played in rescuing the Moshai. He really likes that you took his advice in the Ket facility. And Gara, don't hide their feelings. Your friendship will grow. Oh, nice. Let's look at Ryder's psychological profile. You exhibit heart and sympathy in many situations. Also, the passion that you bring to your role as Pathfinder does not go unnoticed by those who work alongside you. In fact, it may be a key component in drawing others to you. Perhaps I should note that you are more impulsive in the field than you are with your affection. Whatever that means, we can keep that between us. I would add, although you've had to quickly adjust onto a new and unexpected role, You maintain a direct and professional demeanor. My guess is that your former military training and subsequent experience with command structure is serving you well here, or perhaps a solid and respectful approach to things is just your nature. I think it's the latter. I think for Skylar, a solid and respectful approach is his nature. The ties that bind. You started the search for answers to the mystery about why your father made you Pathfinder. You visited your sister Sarah while she was still in coma. See, they're keeping track of this. They're keeping track of me spending time with my sibling. I'm wondering if that matters. You lied to your sister and told her your dad was still alive. You were honest with Sarah about the struggles you faced in finding home. So it wasn't completely untruthful or truthful to her. Known associates, dossiers on Pathfinder writers, friends, allies, and contacts across the Helios cluster. I'm not sure. Did we learn more about Dr. Ellen Ryder? In her final years, Ellen Ryder built what would later become the Pathfinder implants, designing to sync with the AI partner. I think we already knew that. I'm not sure which of these is new. Maybe it's Jal. I'm assuming it's Jal. Jal Amadarab is a trusted member of the Angaran Resistance who has chosen to join the crew of the Tempest to observe and assess us. I thought that word assess was something else. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. With our contact with the Angaran species in its earliest days, Jal is, thankfully, forthcoming on the subject of himself and his people. What records Jal has made available show he is a middle child of a large and prestigious family. He was raised by multiple mothers, apparently customary for Angara, listening to tales of his family's heroic deeds and scientific discoveries from a young age. At 16, he followed in his grandmother's footsteps to fight against the Ket, joining the organized Angaran Resistance as a tracker, scout, and extreme skills sniper. In time, Jal established himself as Ephra's trusted lieutenant. Though I only have a small baseline for Angara, voice stress and body language analysis suggests Jal feels familiar pressure to achieve his own heroic status. Jal himself says only that everyone needs their own story. The Nexus. Nexus Cultural Exchange. The Cultural Exchange was created to support the Andromeda Initiative's principles of peaceful exploration in the new galaxy. Given the high likelihood of contacting sentient life in Andromeda, the exchange was designed to educate and inform local species about the history and intentions of the Milky Way settlers. The hope was to avoid any misunderstandings which could lead to suspicion or hostilities, and instead foster an air of cooperation beneficial to all, which honestly, I think that's very admirable. You might call it a little naive or idealistic, but I feel like there's nothing wrong with aiming for the idealistic, knowing and understanding that you might not quite reach it, but at least aiming for it, I don't think is a bad thing. Let's see. Helios News Service. As Milky Way species work to establish themselves in Andromeda, gathering and disseminating accurate information about galactic events in the public interest has fallen to the fledgling Helios News Service. Novice journalist Davis Quar came to Andromeda to report and learn under a seasoned editor, but when Quar's mentor was reportedly killed in the Nexus uprising, he was forced to set up the official source of news on the Nexus largely by himself. HNS operates with an arm's-length agreement and partial funding from the Andromeda Initiative, a model similar to some national news services in Earth's past. This has raised questions among some colonists about the service's potential bias, though Quar stresses that if HNS has an agenda, it is to hold initiative leadership accountable while chronicling a new era of space exploration. And I forgot to read Hydroponics, because Hydroponics worked for me. The Nexus's original encounter with the Scourge caused heavy damage to the station. Reports show that Hydroponics suffered the brunt of the damage, deepening the resource crisis. In response, Dr. Elliot Camden, the new head of Hydroponics, requested that plants be distributed throughout the station to prevent similar losses. According to station resource allocation, Hydroponics currently accounts for 38% of the Nexus's water ice consumption. After undergoing reverse osmosis to remove heavy metals, the water is divided into reservoirs for each plant variety and a macronutrient mix is added. VI systems constantly monitor the pH, temperature, and dissolved solids count of these reservoirs. The flora in hydroponics was chosen by crop varieties and oxygen yield. While most of the Nexus's oxygen comes from electrolysis, its plants improve overall air quality. That's good. Psychological reports show a marked improvement in station morale since hydroponics' recovery. That makes sense, you know. Fresh air, things like that, it puts you in a better mood. Nakmor Kesh, William Spender. When the Nexus first arrived in Andromeda and an uprising arose among the desperate crew, it was William Spender who convinced clan leader Nakmor Morda to put down the mutineers. By all accounts, did not go well. In return for her help, Morda claims that Spender, in his authority as Assistant Director of Colonial Affairs, promised equal status for the Krogan in any decision-making by way of a seat to the council. When the agreement came to light, Initiative Director Jarun Tan refused to honor it, and most Krogan left the Nexus. Privately reprimanded but publicly accredited for helping to stop the uprising, Spender maintained his position a step away from Nexus senior leadership. Not if I can help it. The Pathfinders. The Asari Pathfinder. Publicly stating she was joining the Andromeda Initiative for spiritual reasons. Matriarch Ishara's centuries of diplomatic experience and popularity among the Asari made her a strong candidate as Pathfinder. In her younger years, she served as the Asari Republics as a judge before joining Thessia's diplomatic corps, and was more recently the architect of peace accords that ended 7 centuries of bitter conflicts in the Kormoth system. Matriarch Ishra left the Milky Way aboard the Asari Ark Lucinia in 2185. The Turian Pathfinder. And we don't know anything about the Solarian Pathfinder yet. I love the color scheme of this guy's suit. Born on Palavin and a decorated engineer in Blackwatch, Mason Barrow, that's a pretty hot name, was touted by the hierarchy to be a shining example of a Turian citizen. There were concerns among Initiative leadership about whether or not he would leave his comfortable life behind to become the Turian Pathfinder, but Mason was eager, so long as he could name his replacement, Avitus Rix, a former Spectre who we did meet. Internet emails and screening interviews state Mason and Avitus met in the field and suggest that their relationship may be more than platonic. Really? Oh, that's a surprise. Avitus and Mason might be more... Oh! You went there, Initiative. Bravo, writers. Mason Barrow left the Milky Way aboard the Turian Ark Natanis in 2185. That is interesting. I love when they put those little nuggets of, you know, it might not necessarily, like, be super important to the character, but it's interesting flavor. Andromeda species. The Angara. Ephra de Tershav. Before Ephra de Tershav assumed command of the resistance, he claims it was a disorganized and ineffectual group of zealots who were sliding into irrelevance. In fact, Jal explains it was the resistance's failure to protect Evra's family from the Ket that drove Ephra to join the group, with the goal of turning it into the effective guerrilla army it inspired to be. Resistance distributed literature explains that Ephra's single-minded dedication to his cause became evident when he led a successful raid on a Ket slave labor camp, reporting that Ephra's resistance forces liberated hundreds of Angaran prisoners before wiping out an entire battalion of Ket sent to stop the attack. According to Jal, Ephra is feared by his resistance subordinates and respected by Angaran leaders, but he remains an isolated individual. He keeps no close ties by design. Everyone in the resistance is expendable, and Ephra is said to understand too well the pain that comes with losing those closest to him. Tragic. Angaran culture. Our first cultural exchanges quickly revealed that there is no homogeneous Angaran culture. Development on separate planets has left striking differences in Angaran social norms that are yet to be reconciled. Some common threads can be established. The Angara prize familial unity, preferring to live, work, and raise children in extended family groups. Political factions tend to emerge from these extended families with leaders elected by popular support. Spirituality has a role in Angaran daily life, with their calendar making space for the religious holidays of many different faiths. As a safe and hospitable garden world, Aya has emerged as a center for Angaran society and trade. With many communities facing harsh conditions and resource shortages, A lottery system is used to transfer personnel to Aya for extended periods. These Garesen, roughly sanctuary trips, also serve to pool reclaimed scientific knowledge and military strategy. It's cool, like, learning about getting these codexes for all of these races that are completely new, because, you have, in these codexes, Mass Effect 2 and 3, you had the same information, basically, for the Asari and Krogan, all those people. Now we actually are having a brand new race to learn about. Axul. I like this guy's orange outfit and his orange tattoos. Axul is a former student of the Moshai who was captured by the Ket while studying remnant technology on Vold. He spent a year in a forced labor camp before escaping with a handful of other prisoners. Scarred physically and mentally by his experience, Axul turned his back on his studies and his life on Aya to form the Roakar, a xenophobic fighting force who used guerrilla tactics against both the Ket and the Milky Way species. Jal describes Axul as annoyingly magnetic and a born leader. I like that term, annoyingly magnetic. Among all the Moshai students, Axul learned the quickest. He was always surrounded by friends and admirers. Before his imprisonment, the Moshai believed Axul would be the one to carry on her legacy. His change in personality hit her the hardest. Angaran spirituality. Spirituality plays an important role in Angaran life, and Angaran children are raised from their first moments to follow their family's spiritual traditions. Within most Angaran faith systems, there are deities to fear or worship, and focus is placed on personal growth and the betterment of the soul. All Angara are taught the importance of meditation and quiet contemplation. One common teaching is that the soul can be heard when the mind is still. Angaran also believe that the growth of a soul continues after death, through rebirth. From cultural exchanges and Angaran spiritual texts, most, if not all, Angara appear to believe in reincarnation. When a person dies, they are born within the same family. I think we kind of saw some proof of that. I mean, how can you explain what happened, with that one Angara and the artifact? How can you explain that, really, besides reincarnation? It seems like that would be the best answer. When a person dies, they are reborn within the same family. A good act performed in one life contributes to greater enlightenment in the next. It's almost like Buddhism, I think, in that sense. The importance placed on different types of good acts seems to vary from planet to planet, and even from family to family. Yeah, I feel like this might take its roots from influence from Buddhism. For instance, some Angara may value acts of heroism, other acts of compassion. The variety appears limitless. Our encounter in Havaral with the Angara called Tavos, believed to be a reincarnation of an ancient Angaran champion, has provided some scientific evidence for this belief in reincarnation. However, further investigation is needed before definite conclusions can be drawn. Angara languages. Angaran linguistics describe between 200 to 300 public languages across their combined settlements. Wow. When accounting for family languages, each family might have its own language or dialect, spoken privately and passed down over generations. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you can have a different language from a familial level. I've never heard of that. That's kind of creative. Which makes sense for their culture, since family is a big deal to them. And they reincarnate within their own family. The number climbs rapidly into the thousands. No wonder there's so many languages. The language used by most Angara across the Helios cluster is Shalesh, a lingua franca that was commonly used in the early days of Angaran spaceflight before fading into obscurity. So wait a minute, if the families end up having different languages from each other, do our translators still translate them? I don't know. I guess not, because the translator needs time to learn the language before it can actually translate it, if they've never encountered that species before. New connections between Angaran settlements and constant evolution of languages since their separation means it has now seen a revival. Sources say Shalesh originally meant to barter for the boon, apparently a joke or pun around the idea of trading between interstellar colonies. Some terms, Angara, civilized people, those who have put down roots, derived from Anj, meaning anchor, Dar, north, literally rock, the term for a village or small outpost, Jarevaon, galaxy, Hajave Jareveon, literally means our galaxy, commonly referring to Andromeda, while Jarvaon Imsaf and Masaf Shell galaxy refers to the Milky Way. Para, verb, to know or learn. Shena, noun, the mouth. Tavetan, noun, a friend or trusted comrade, one who would be vouched for the rest of one who would be vouched for to the rest of the family. I have a feeling that Jal, if you build a relationship with him, would eventually call you Tavetan. It's like Kadan to the Kinari. Vesagara, noun plural, uprooted people, exiles, a derogatory term for those from the Milky Way, most often used by Roakar. Vesagara. And Gara, the Roakar. Oh my, look at their helmet. Jal describes the Roakar as dangerous cousins, ruthless and single-minded. The Roakar's propaganda describes their intent to drive all alien invaders, both Milky Way and Ket, out of the Helios cluster. The Roakar were founded by Aksul, a charismatic Angara who studied with the Moshai. Jal explains that Aksul was captured by the Ket and held in a forced labor camp for over a standard year, while the resistance could not risk a rescue. Though he survived, Aksul was embittered against the resistance and alien life. Upon his escape, he recruited young Angara and the disaffected resistance members into an independent force named the Fearsome Soldiers from Angaran mythology, the Roakar. The arrival of the Nexus, portrayed as few further invaders by Aksul, provoked the Roakar past breaking point. They are now engaged in full-fledged guerrilla operations against all non-Angaran inhabitants of the cluster. The Angaran resistance officially disavows the Roakar, but family and political interconnections complicate any organized opposition to them. Technology. Considering their civilization endured both the immense disaster of the Scourge and the brutal Ket invasion, Angara possess remarkably advanced technology. Their starships, while generally small and bare-bones functional, are more than capable of keeping pace with Andromeda Initiative vessels. Angara use advanced communications and computer systems that have quickly adapted to interface with Milky Way devices, helping to smooth through some of the technological hurdles of first contact. When it comes to personal technology, Angara have focused primarily on defensive and offensive innovations. Their weapons and armor are impressive enough to garner approval from Krogan who have witnessed them in battle, and are designed to work seamlessly with the innate Angaran control over electromagnetism. The Angara are, in turn, fascinated by Milky Way omnitools and have already begun experimenting with the technology for their own use. The Angara have also had decades to study Ket technology firsthand. If the relations remain cordial, this technical knowledge may become invaluable. The Resistance. The arrival of the Ket stunned and then divided the Angara. As described by Jal, infighting was used as a means of conquest by the Ket, but the presence of a common enemy eventually galvanized the Angara to work together. The various resistant groups merged into the organized Angaran resistance roughly 5 years ago under Ephra Dit Tershav's command, supported by prominent families and determined to stop their Ket oppressors. The Resistance's headquarters are on Aya. For security reasons, neither Ephra nor Jal will provide details of the Resistance's organizational structure, but it can be assumed that there are multiple independent cells across the cluster, just like Cerberus. Many non-resistance Angara support their work either logistically or financially. The Resistance specializes in assassination, sabotage of Ket facilities, deployment of supplies to besiege populations, and the rescue and rehabilitation of Angaran prisoners. Many members of the Angaran resistance have joined up with the Nexus militia, enlisting Apex support for their missions. Some senior officers have opened treaty negotiations with the Nexus. The Angara are the only known sentient species local to the Helios cluster. Scattered across numerous worlds, the Angara are uniting as a people. Though much of their culture and scientific knowledge has been lost, the Angara continue to rebuild and resist the Ket conquest of Helios. From our cultural exchanges, we know that the Angara have a unique control over electromagnetism. Specialized skin cells and organs allow them to generate and control electromagnetic fields artistically or unleash them in combat. Oral histories describe how ancient Angara were tribal and nomadic before settling in cities. Many of them still live in large, tight-knit families, and workplaces have a guild-like organizational structure. Politically, the Angara remained divided. Attempts at a reformed government were disrupted by the Ket. Approximately 5 years ago, a coherent resistance movement emerged on Aya, the first to draw unilateral political support with the goal of driving the Ket out of Helios for good. Angara history. Many historical records of the Angara have been lost, but what survives tells the story of how ancient Angara achieved spaceflight. Eventually, they settled on 5 separate garden worlds, including Vold. The Scourge struck in approximately 2400 CE by our calendar. The phenomenon devastated the Helios cluster, destroyed many Angaran cities, and sent their culture into decline. The Dark Age lasted for over a century before the Angara began to adapt to the new conditions in Helios. Eventually, the disparate Angara regained spaceflight capability and reestablished contact with one another, but the isolation had fostered separate culture, political, and spiritual blocks. Interesting. The Angara struggled to find common ground. This struggle was ongoing when the Ket arrived 75 years ago. The Archon exploited their disparity and began a brutal contest of the Helios cluster. Ironically, as several Angaran historians point out, a common enemy provided the impetus to unite. Today, the Angara continue their efforts as reconstruction and resistance. Angara, Moshai, Shefa. Part scientific genius, part cultural icon. Moesha, Shefa, is treated with an almost religious reverence by everyday Angara. Her technological innovations have touched nearly every facet of their civilization, and were instrumental in the construction of Aya's capital city. Her analyses of the Ket threat have slowed the enemy's conquest of the Helios cluster by informing the tactics and goals of the resistance for decades. From Jal's recollections, the Moesha chafes at her celebrity status and prefers to work in solitude. Unlike most Angara, Moesha doesn't belong to a large extended family. She claims she has never married nor borne children, focusing on her life's work of unraveling the mystery of remnant technology. Her goal, stated in many of her writings, is to unlock the secrets of the remnant for the benefit of all Angara, helping them to overcome the Ket and restore Angaran civilization to its pre-Scourge greatness. The Ket. Fiend are monstrous beasts with heavily armored carapace. Unlike the stealthier wraiths, Fiends are besieging units that attack head-on, scattering enemy forces and destroying entrenched enemy positions. They attack non-Ket without appearing to need orders. Some scientists believe Fiends respond aggressively to an absence of Ket pheromones or similar cues. A Fiend's carapace is permeated by dense cartilage that makes it both strong and flexible, and acts as a shock absorber for incoming fire. Preliminary study of their nervous system suggests that nerve transmission is dampened above a certain pain threshold, allowing a Fiend to detect injury but not be slowed by it. Reports of Fiend encounters are often accompanied by casualty lists, and the militia advises that only a well-armed and organized team should handle a Fiend at full rampage. Ascendant. The Ascendant are the highest caste of Ket seen on the battlefield and are considered exceptionally dangerous. These are the ones with the orbs, I think. Apex reports that they are typically only seen when the Ket are conducting high-stake operations or when a persistent enemy must be eliminated. Element 0 cores throughout its armor allow an Ascendant to levitate off the ground, allowing it to command the attention of subordinate Ket and rain devastating fire upon enemies. The Ascendants appear to have a biological control over electromagnetic force. Cell samples gathered at great risk show electrolyte formations. It is likely that an Ascendant uses equipment or implants to amplify and control this ability, allowing it to manipulate EM fields that empower its weaponry. If provoked, the Ascendants can unleash a ball lightning-like attack which conducts electricity to nearby foes, or yank an opponent hopelessly off their feet to deliver a barrage of blows. So it's basically the Revenant of the Helios cluster. The Archon. The Ket present a mysterious but ever-present danger in the Helios cluster, as the militia struggles to gather any details on their plans or motivations. Rumors have reached the nexus of the Ket's leader, a powerful military commander known as the Archon. This Archon is said to command the Ket from a dreadnought out in the unknown space and is only rarely sighted planetside. Thus far, these sightings are always at remnant dig sites or Ket-controlled remnant structures. The Archon's interest in the remnant remains unexplained, but intelligence gathering continues. Led by the Archon, the Ket are a powerful and technologically advanced species whose home space lies beyond the Helios cluster. The Ket encountered here are an expeditionary force seeking life forms for exaltation, as well as secrets of the remnant technology left behind in Helios. Evidence suggests they arrived in Helios roughly 70 years ago. As we learned, they transformed from Angaran 70 years ago, which happened after the Scourge arrived, interestingly enough. So the Scourge happened first. Maybe the Archon, when he was in Angara, found a way to transform his brethren into Ket because they are actually trying to get rid of the Scourge. That must be what their motivation is. So they're not necessarily the bad guy in that sense? That's my theory right now of what the Ket's deal is. As we have learned, Ket multiply and replenish their armies via exaltation, where the Ket take desirable genetic traits from other life forms and incorporate them into the Ket genome. The donor life form in return is mutated with Ket DNA. Ket view this exchange as an almost sacred process of self-development, though our scientists disagree. The Ket themselves remain enigmatic. We know they value genetic and physical superiority, that they willingly enslave other species, and that they have positions throughout the Helios cluster. Unfortunately, a sustained dialogue or diplomatic overture seem impossible, as the Ket ruthlessly exploit any attempt at peaceful communication. Technology. Study of Ket technology reveals an interesting dichotomy. While their faster-than-light drives and equipment show less sophistication than System Alliance technology back in the Milky Way, the Ket are vastly superior when it comes to genetic manipulation and biological analysis. Their weaponry eschews VI support in favor of targeting neurological systems or internal organs with unusual precision, and salvaged Ket gear shows that even their battlefield medicine is exceptional compared to the Initiative's. Nexus scientists believe this underlies the Ket's interest in biological excellence. Their technology appears to serve as a subordinate role to studying and improving one's genetic superiority. My analysis of Ket technology from your scan suggests that this is highly mimetic. It follows the Ket pattern of behavior. Rather than conducting research and development, Ket engineers incorporate features from other species and improve their designs incrementally. Remnant and even Initiative-inspired changes are already beginning to appear. The Destined. The Destined are described in intercepted communications as ancestral Ket who act as battlefield commanders. They rally infantry into tightly cohesive units, providing shield support and directing operations from the center. The most interesting characteristic of the Destined is their ability to produce an obscuring smoke cloud without mechanical assistance. Does that mean they fart it out somehow? Preliminary studies suggest Destined have internal sacs that excrete, they fart the smoke cloud, carbonate-rich compounds, which includes a melanin-like pigment. When expelled into the air at will, internal acids trigger a gas evolution reaction, and the pigment expands to cover the battlefield. My goodness. Cloaking other Ket allies. These guys are worse than Wario. While studies suggest it is not harmful, breathing the cloud for extended periods of time period is not recommended. I wouldn't recommend it either. The Anointed. Oh, I hate these things with their shields and their ridiculous guns. The Ket soldiers known as the Anointed appear to be of similar cast to the Chosen. Infantry equipped with light armor. Anointed, however, wield heavy plasma cannons, making them a rallying point for other Ket forces. I'm wondering if we can somehow craft our own plasma cannon, and shield themselves with kinetic barriers against flashback. I'd be surprised if we couldn't. A barrage from an Anointed plasma gun can shred through enemy barriers and severely damage ground vehicles. Communication intercepts suggest that Anointed assist in coordinating Chosen squads and act as in an NCO role. It is unclear if the term Anointed refers to a senior rank amongst the Chosen, or if the Anointed are part of a separate division within the Ket infantry. With a new understanding of Ket exaltation, it is now apparent that Anointed are exalted Angara, transformed as soldiers of the Ket cause. Their title may refer to foot soldiers who have been entrusted with a more crucial battlefield role by their superiors. With a new understanding of Ket exaltation, it is now apparent that Chosen are exalted Angara, transformed as soldiers of the Ket cause. This may explain their title. Their devotion to senior Ket can now be understood as a hardwired hormonal response that induces unshakable loyalty. With a new understanding of Ket's exaltation, the similarity can now be explained. It appears that wraiths are the result of exalting these feral creatures into faithful war beasts. Ket biology. Ket biology is a driving force in their expansion. The Ket are capable of transferring beneficial genetic traits from other species during exaltation, modifying their genome and expressing new traits almost immediately. Study of Ket DNA show evidence of horizontal gene transfer and the incorporation of genes from dozens of unknown species. Their cells have transfective properties normally only seen in specially engineered laboratory animals, meaning the Ket are able to custom mutate their genome. All Ket and their exalted have a distinctive white exoskeleton. Dissection reveals these growths contain fluid-filled sacs that capture dissolved gases from the circulatory system, slowly releasing them if the Ket is oxygen deprived. Interesting. The fluid pressure of these sacs also stabilizes the body if the environmental pressure is reduced. This helps the Ket survive hazardous planets or even in the vacuum of space without suits. That is interesting, while providing additional protection against gunshot injuries. But it seems like that's only temporary. It sounds like, Fluid-filled sacks that capture dissolved gases from the circulatory system. It feels like they can't do that indefinitely because it'll eventually run out. Exaltation. The facility on Vold has revealed a key element of Ket's strategy in biology. The Ket do not recruit soldiers, they take prisoners and submit them to exaltation. This process transfers beneficial genetic traits to the Ket and turns the donor into a fanatically loyal exalted, many of whom serve in the Ket military. Most of the individuals who have fought appear to be exalted in Gara. We have fought. The exaltation process appears to be two-way, transferring carefully selected Ket traits into the donor. The resulting mutations permanently alter the physical appearance and glands of the donor, inducing hormonal changes that cement the individual's loyalty to the Ket. Scientists on the Nexus suggest that exaltation may have originated out of necessity. If long ago the Ket somehow reached a state of genetic stagnation, adopting the genetic traits of others may have been their only means of survival. Today it is ceremonial, if morally repellent, cornerstone of Ket culture. This seems to be an ongoing thing in BioWare games, where there's a race that's actually formed from other races, like Darkspawn. Different types of Darkspawn from other races. In the Mass Effect trilogy, like the Reaperized, all the different Reaperized creatures that you fight. And here it's the exalted species. It'll be interesting, maybe in a future game, like we'll see exalted Milky Way creatures, since obviously, like, they were only exalting Andromeda creatures because we hadn't arrived yet. Although they have had about a year, so I guess it's possible. Outlaws. Outlaw, Adhi. Adhi are four-legged life forms signed on multiple worlds across the Helios cluster. Often foraging together in packs, they are extremely intelligent and capable of understanding complex commands. Wandering explorers and mercenaries are often accompanied by one or two trained Adhi for defense. When attacking, Adhi drive opponents out of secure positions to make them vulnerable to gunfire or a concerted attack by the rest of the pack. Their jaw strength has been measured in excess of 1900 newtons. Dangerous even when wearing a hard suit, Adhi also show no fear of scout rovers. Interestingly, the Adhi genome shows signs of extensive genetic engineering that resembles the uplifting of some domestic animals on Earth before gene modification laws were put in place. These adaptations allow the Adhi to survive in hazardous environments and may account for their almost tactical intelligence even in the wild. Saboteur. Most of the cited outlaw forces are composed of forces from the Milky Way, but many in Gara have also joined them, either out of delusionment with the Resistance or for their own personal glory. This has been heralded with fascination by Nexus social xenopsychologists who claim it demonstrates universal values and goals between sentient life, and concerned by Apex, who now have to contend with outlaws who have expert knowledge of the Helios cluster. The light armor and weapons of Angaran outlaws have been fatally deceptive to many Apex squads. When necessary, the Angara act as saboteurs, using their innate control over electromagnetism to drain enemy shield capacitors and boost their own equipment. With combatants suddenly vulnerable, they are easy prey for the saboteur or allies. Equipped with custom-modified sniper rifles, sharpshooters accompanying raiding parties as scouts and long-range combatants, a well-trained sharpshooter can pick off an unprepared explorer before they even know there are enemies nearby. The skill of many of these sharpshooters is, ironically, the result of initiative colonist defense training before leaving the Milky Way. Strategically, it was believed that well-armed snipers would be simple but effective defenders of their outposts, with a lowered risk of losing personnel in the event of an attack. It appears this training has now been passed along. Pariah. Even without military training, rogue Asari are exceptionally dangerous, as their natural biotic talents mean they are never truly disarmed. These pariahs, now cited in outlaw bandits, wield their powers in pursuit of plunder and glory. Pariahs attack at short range with shotguns designed for Asari commando forces, wearing down kinetic barriers in preparation for a biotic-focused attack. For more persistent enemies, many pariahs have mastered a deadly backlash technique, generating a shield with near-negative mass that accelerates incoming projectiles back at their forces. Raider. The outlaw bands of the Helios cluster are diverse. Some were individuals who joined the Andromeda initiative as an escape from the Milky Way, some were exiled after the Nexus uprising, others chose to seek their fortune elsewhere. Most of these individuals survive by raiding outposts or wandering exploration teams. While not particularly organized or well-equipped, these raiders present a risk to undefended colonists. Most prefer to extort supplies and equipment rather than risk themselves, but when provoked or desperate, they will resort to deadly force. Anarchist. Turians running with outlaw bands have turned their mandatory military training to less noble purposes. They override the safeties on ex-military hardware to handle a higher explosive yield, resulting in deadly inferno grenades that leave thermite deposits on the ground after impact. The thermite can cling to armor and cause massive injuries. Apex's largely Turian volunteer force takes the dim view of these anarchists, seeing them as not only a threat, but an affront to the Turian values of honor and service. Those who cannot be forced to surrender are hunted ruthlessly, though this has only driven anarchists to ever greater feats of military engineering. And the Remnant. Remnant technology requires careful... I feel like I've already read this already. Remnant Destroyer. Destroyers are heavy weapon platforms deployed against the most determined intruders into Remnant territory. Now, these things were nasty. Armed with a directed energy cannon and 2 secondary laser turrets that can engage multiple targets simultaneously, a single destroyer can take on an entire combat squad in minutes. When asked why she named it a destroyer, PB folded her arms, rolled her eyes, and answered, "You figure it out." One of the most disconcerting characteristics of the destroyer is its partitioned power system. Destroying one of its turrets means that power is automatically diverted to its locomotion systems, allowing it to move much faster. Many individuals have mistakenly believed they could pick off a destroyer's turrets from a distance and evade it safely, only to have the destroyer close that distance unexpectedly. So take out the legs first. This often has fatal consequences, since at melee range, the destroyer transfers power to an electromagnetic burst that causes severe damage to any individuals unlucky enough to be close. Apex is a reported variants of the destroyer that have a self-repair network for their turrets, which is annoying. Again, which is why you should take the legs out first. These destroyers can briefly go dormant, transferring full power to fix any damage before reactivating as turrets again. Few have been sighted, but engagement is not recommended. Remnant Architect. A rare and awe-inspiring sight, architects are colossal remnant constructs that burst from the ground, using multiple element zero cores to hover and attack from above. They dwarf buildings and ground vehicles, and their armor is impenetrable to all known small arms fire, including mass accelerator rounds. Only the power cores on an architect's body appear vulnerable, and even to show signs of self-repair capabilities given enough time. So this is the dragon creature that we saw in Vold, which I'm not touching yet. Each architect is armed with multiple defensive systems, each extremely dangerous. Ferrofluid reservoirs and manufacturing peripherals allow it to create smaller remnant units to swarm enemies. Its most devastating attack is an electrically charged energy burst that swarms, with fluidly replenishing shrapnel, overcharging shields, and then shredding a target. I'm glad I didn't attack that thing until I learned all of this stuff. Though an architect cannot be destroyed, disabling its power cores will ground it, giving an opportunity to interface with its central processor and reprogram its current directives to compel it to leave. That's pretty neat, that there's an enemy that you simply just can't destroy. You just can't destroy it. But you can force it to retreat. The name Architect precedes their initial sighting. Phoebe explains she theorized the existence of a remnant that was responsible for excavating the space needed for vaults and for building other remnant infrastructure. These architects, simply by size alone, appear to fit that profile. Nullifier. This remnant model appears to have been designed for excavation. If provoked, it enters a siege mode, where it anchors itself to the ground and launches explosive projectiles at a target. In this mode, this remnant constantly runs a self-repair cycle, reducing damage from incoming fire. PB claims that this characteristic is what earned it the name Nullifier. Recovering of Nullifier parts has been illuminating. They use both balancing pistons, and dense ferrofluid reservoirs in their lower extremities to remain stable while firing. Design characteristics that could be useful for initiative mining operations. Their blast shielding is also surprisingly light for its thickness, 72 millimeters, and density. The plates are cushioned by a honeycomb of shock-absorbing polymer to distribute any ballistic force. How do we know that? However, these characteristics are also what allows them to absorb heavy fire and act as formidable weapons. That makes sense. We already know about the assembler. I think we already know that, and we already know about the observer. Planets and locations. The Helios clusters contains many habitable worlds and other interests for the Pathfinder to explore. Havarl. As Jal explains, Havarl is considered the ancestral home of the Angara. The ruins of Angaran cities are a draw for researchers, looters, and Angara who defy the Ket to make pilgrimage. The planet's history also makes it symbolic staging ground for the ruthlessly xenophobic Rolkar. Long-range surveys by the Andromeda Initiative indicated Havarl is a garden world of lush green jungles and abundant liquid water. The planet was considered a golden world and given the label Habitat 3. Our observations today show how Varl is unrecognizable. The jungles now dominate much of the planet's surface, demonstrating bizarre growth patterns. Samples show grotesque mutations and hormonal changes in the jungle's plant life, rendering it not only extremely hardy, but hazardous for consumption. These factors point to a large-scale shift in Varl's ecology that bears investigation. With the remnant vault stabilized and correctly activated, both Angaran and Nexus scientists report a noticeable improvement in Varl's plant life. The more aggressive and mutated species are dying back, supplemented by soil-enriching and pollinating varieties. In a comparatively brief time, Havarl shows sign of being a welcoming garden world. Meanwhile, initiative scientists have joined forces with Angaran personnel to investigate Havarl further. The Scourge is a colloquial term for a huge and extremely dangerous interstellar phenomenon sighted across much of the Helios cluster. It appears to be a cloud spreading in tendrils that affect planets and surrounding space, destroying starships that attempt to pass through or near it. Observation and data from the Nexus now show the Scourge's tendrils are composed of radioactive element 0 rich dust and debris. Really? Within these tendrils, thousands of microscopic and unstable warps in space-time are constantly erupting. These unpredictable distortions build up a charge in the EZO, causing uncontrolled mass effects that alter gravity and can rip a starship apart without warning. That makes sense. The Scourge's presence also affects nearby planets, raining down radioactive fallout and debris, or even altering the orbit of worlds that pass through or near it. No long-range data showed any sign of the Scourge before departure of the Helios cluster. Nexus scientists suggest it must have appeared in the intervening centuries while the arcs traveled to Andromeda. One of the Scourge's more interesting characteristics is it appears artificial. Its origin point is yet to be determined, but the pattern of the tendrils and the composition of the cloud could not have been caused by any celestial event known to astrophysics. Investigations are ongoing, though slowed by the deadly conditions created by the Scourge. Aya. Aya is an anomaly in the Helios cluster, a lush planet where a remnant site appears to be active. It is a sanctuary for the Angara, the only known sentient species local to Helios, and guarded fiercely against outsiders. This is helped by Aya's position relative to Helios's black hole, whose gravitational lensing effects makes Aya hardest to detect. That's pretty cool. The Scourge also makes the approach to Aya extremely dangerous for untrained pilots. Scans indicate numerous Ket wrecks lost in the Scourge nearby, picked clean by Angaran salvagers. Aya is also the headquarters of the Angaran resistance movement against the Ket, whose leaders advise Aya's planetary group, Perrin Shi. Director Tan has ordered that Aya is not only to be considered sovereign territory, but a military power. While the Tempest and its crew were allowed to visit peacefully, the Nexus is advising extreme caution to other potential visitors and ordering the distribution of early contact guidelines. Black hole Ketos. At the center of the Helios cluster is a black hole, a huge star that has collapsed into a region of spacetime with gravitational effects so powerful that even light cannot escape. This example is believed to be a Care black hole approximately 12 stellar masses in size and appears to have absorbed additional mass from nearby systems. Our scientists believe that the radiation released from the creation of the black hole may explain the abundant element 0 found in Helios. In the Milky Way, study of black holes was still in its infancy. The forces around the event horizon typically destroy probes before they can transmit their data. This black hole presents a unique opportunity for study, even at a remove. I think that says even at a remote. Vold. From the Milky Way, the initiative identified Vold as Habitat 6, a golden world, projected to be a life-sustaining temperate garden world. This is confirmed by Angaran historians. Vold was once a heavily populated and thriving Angaran colony. During the Scourge event, gravitational distortions affected Vold's orbit. Models from the Nexus Tech Lab show that this triggered a minor ice age. The Angara were forced to withdraw to a few urban centers, with the rest of Vold's population scattered in similar settlements. Vold is therefore both culturally and strategically important to the Angara, and has drawn the attention of the Ket. Reports suggest a significant military presence on both sides as the Angaran resistance fight to defend Vold's population and protect the ice-encased remains of their world. The initiative's new outpost, Terre Viuni, has been safely established, led by new mayor Priya Blake. Terre Viuni is committed to open borders with the Angara as Vold becomes more habitable. The outpost is now a major supplier of water ice to other colonies in the Nexus. Analyzing Suvi's orbital readings, it appears that the Vold Volt, unable to gravitationally compensate for Vold's change in orbit, has triggered a controlled melt of frozen carbon dioxide in the permafrost. Projections show this will thicken the atmosphere, gradually raising Vol's temperature to ease the ice age. This reveals that remnant vaults are capable of sophisticated analysis and response to planetary conditions. Technology. Research and development. Augmentations. While many material components in Andromeda are familiar, we have also discovered a rare and more valuable materials attributable to exposure to the Scourge or mysterious alien technology. These augmentation materials are used in research and development to craft powerful specialized items. Augmentations are essential to support weapon or gear combinations that would be impossible to build with conventional materials. Some augmentations are sold by traders, but the highest quality augmentations require careful research. Once completed, the augmentation's profile is used to recognize additional examples of that augmentation out in the field. Ships and vehicles. The Tempest ODSY drive. Standard ship drive cores build up static electricity and require periodic discharge on a planet at specialized facilities to prevent static from building to dangerous levels. With few such suitable discharge points in dark space, the ODSY drive core was developed for the ARC's long-haul journey to Andromeda. The Tempest drive core is an unexperimental small-scale variant based upon the original design. The ODSY Out-Galaxy Distributed Static Sink drive core is designed to minimize static buildup and transfers the remaining charge to specifically designed capacitors attached to the core. The recycled electricity is used to run ship systems, reducing power requirements and lowering heat generation. That's cool. Cross-galaxy, the ARCs gathered hydrogen using an electromagnetic rhomscope, converting it into protons with an ionizing laser. Proton collision in the ARC's fusion reactors provided power for their thrusters. The Tempest thrusters run on conventional helium-3, though initiative breakthroughs in fuel efficiency mean their helium requirement are drastically lower. So this means that they recycle it to use on their thrusters. That's very, very smart. We already read about the Arc Imperium, right? Tempest Laboratories. The Tempest is equipped with the long survey and scientific studies, which are carried out in the ship's two main labs. The Biolab is equipped to hydroponically grow both Milky Way and Andromeda's plant life for research or consumption. The plants also clean the ship's air and generate almost a modest amount of oxygen. Sealed observation chambers are set up to study small fauna, sequence genetic material, or simulate bacterial growth in carefully controlled conditions. All biomatter entering or leaving the lab is subjected to additional quarantine measures. The Tech Lab is used for engineering and technical studies, spectral analysis using laser apparatus, and for analyzing capabilities of discovered technology. New minerals or metals can be subjected to additional resistance testing before being used in the Tempest Research Center. Because of the potential volatility of new materials, the Tech Lab is equipped with heavy radiation shielding and can be sealed off in an emergency. The Ket starships. The Ket utilize a variety of military aircraft, from agile dropships to enormous dreadnoughts. Closer inspection of Ket starships includes several destroyed by the Scourge, has shown that they appear to be heavily biomimetic. While not organic, the Ket takes strong design inspiration from living organisms. Air filtration, electrical systems, and heat management mimic behavior seen in living creatures. The few Ket engine cores available for study show that while the Ket use element 0 cores, their design is radically different. While in comparatively short range environments such as the Helios cluster, they function similarly to Milky Way drives. Ket drive cores are capable of gravitationally contracting space in front of the ship and shortening it behind, creating an Alcubierre waveform that allows the ship to traverse longer distances quickly. That's a pretty cool phenomenon. This design feature compensates somewhat for the lack of long-range mass relay transport in Andromeda. That's cool. I was wondering if they had an explanation of different ways that creatures traveled around the galaxy in FTL flight, and if it would be completely different from Mass Effect relays, though these drives are highly inefficient by comparison. However, it is clear we have only seen a small cross-section of Ket starships, likely military vessels on long deployment. More scientifically advanced starships may exist elsewhere. Arc Natanus was constructed in orbit around Aventon, a once lucrative mining plant in the Taurian home system, Trebia. The Ark was named after legendary spacefarer Pali Natanus, who is believed to be the first Turian to travel through a mass relay. The Natanus is built to similar specifications as the Asari and human Arks, but with minor changes to accommodate her dextroamino acid-based passengers. Natanus is captained by the renowned De Praeton of the Sixth Fleet. Like most economical ventures, Turian investors were turned into the Andromeda initiative by their clients, the Volus. The Turian hierarchy was intentionally kept in the dark to keep the initiative a private civilian project. Ark Natanus traveled to the initiative rendezvous point in 2184 and left the Milky Way as part of the initial departure wave in 2185. The Tempest stealth system. In 2183, the Systems Alliance and the Turian hierarchy co-developed the IES internal emission sink stealth system for small military frigates. It's unknown how the initiative acquired the system for its survey ships, as IES stealth technology is classified. Despite valid security certificates, no record of negotiations exists in the Nexus legal archives. An IES stealth system is designed to capture the heat and radiation emitted by all starships in refrigerated storage sinks, effectively removing the ship from sensors. Initiative starship systems are streamlined to emit less electromagnetic and particle radiation, and to lower heat production. This reduces the amount of emissions to be stored. Additionally, breakthroughs in cryogenic research allow the storage sinks to be more effectively refrigerated, allowing longer stealth time before the sinks must be vented for safety. The Tempest can remain stationary in stealth for several hours, or travel at FTL in silent running for shorter periods. Tempest research capabilities. Pathfinders are often the first to encounter new potential threats or valuable technology. The Tempest is therefore equipped for sophisticated research and development in the field to support a fast turnaround of any necessary upgrades or analysis. The Research Center syncs with the Tech Lab systems, giving it insight into the capabilities of new materials and their potential applications. My connection to Arcoperion and the Nexus allows me to transfer data and latest discoveries from the scientist station here. Quantum computing enables multiple complex simulations to be run simultaneously, and new components or configurations can be tested virtually before they are built. And Tempest technology. The Tempest required a number of experimental technologies to accommodate the unique requirements of a Pathfinder team. Its planetary surface imaging, for example, used photosensitive and LiDAR emitting microsatellites that coordinate with the Tempest's router back to SAM node. I then conduct simulated scientific and probability studies on the data before presenting the Pathfinder with its summarized analysis, typically in 0.5 seconds. That's impressive. The Tempest's computer network presented interesting challenges. As most Milky Way computer systems have anti-AI safeguards built in, the Tempest network had to be designed from scratch to accommodate my interaction with the ship's systems. Firmware bridges inspired by studies into Geth networking technology allow me to temporarily interact with and augment sensors, communications, and the ship's navigation array. Given the desire to reduce mass without sacrificing safety, the electrical charge from the Tempest capacitors is used to keep the ship stable via prototype piezoelectric vibration reduction (PVR) technology. When the ship's superstructure is bent by vibrations, such as during atmospheric re-entry or complex flight maneuvers, piezoelectric elements receive an electrical charge that bends bulkheads in the opposing direction, reducing vibrations and smoothing the ship's flight path. And that's it, guys. That's all the Codex, finally. I know this is a particularly long one, but if you watch the whole thing or listen to the whole thing, give yourself a pat in the back. Thank you so much. And we'll continue on with the main storyline in the next video. So until next time, everybody, love yourselves and love each other.